Welcome back to day 85 of the DSR channel. I can't believe it's been 85 days. Feels like longer, but not in a bad way because it's been a lot of fun. Honestly, I expected there to be a lot more like mean people, kind of like toxic people, and like I don't know 5%, and it's been like 0.01%. I mean, the community's just been awesome. So thank you all for making this just a wonderful, enjoyable experience. All right. I'm going to finish off the feats in the player's handbook with the epic feats. Going to do it all in one today. I bet you thought I wasn't going to get there, but I did. And yeah, already my goal for the week is 2,000, and already got up to 1247 for the day. So a 1% increase. Thank you all for your help and support. I appreciate it. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe and give me a like too. Those things I guess help probably a lot more than the hype. So I don't know what to do with that one, but thank you. All right, here's the ranking for all of the epic boons from the player's handbook. I've updated the Google Drive to have all of this in there, and it's all in one spreadsheet. So just look for version 12. And I said spreadsheet, but it's a PDF and a CSV. So you can download those and view it however you like, maybe both. I like to slice and dice things myself, so get the CSV so you can slice and dice it. The PDF is just easier on the eyes for presentation. Let's jump right into them. So, Boon of Combat Prowess. You can increase any ability score by 1 to a maximum of 30. All right, that's what you get with the boons now. And when you miss with an attack roll, you can hit instead. And you can do this once per turn, not once per round. So once per turn. So during your turn and as a reaction. You can do it both times. And if you're a level 18 Cavalier Fighter who has a reaction during every single creature's turn, you can do this that many times. 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. And you would get just auto hit every time. It's just ridiculous with the Cavalier. I give this one an A for frontliners, an A for skirmishers, an A for ranged. Those are the ones who are trying to hit and deal damage with attack rolls. Now there are you can make non-martial frontliner skirmishers and ranged single target damage dealers. But the majority of those are martials fighting with weapons, making attack rolls. Even the best spellcasting ranged single target damage dealer roles are like or classes are like the warlock, who's going to be using Eldritch Blast, which is an attack roll. So just the majority of the time when you're even doing single target range damage, it's still going to be attack rolls. So super great for them. Yeah, this is just great for any martial, anyone who's making attack rolls. It's just awesome. Probably the best boon for you. Right? In most cases, this is what you want. It's a little less valuable if you have like persistent advantage, like you're a barbarian, you're reckless all the time, or if you're not a paladin, a fighter with a vex weapon, because fighters at level, I want to say 10, have studied attacks. Yeah, studied attacks, which means when you miss, you have advantage on your next attack. And if you have vex, then you have advantage on your next attack when you hit. So regardless of hit or miss, after your first attack, you always have advantage on each creature. And there's ways to like even give yourself advantage on that. If you just had the lucky feat, that's almost enough to give you advantage at the start of every creature's time you start attacking a creature. So you just start with advantage and always have advantage. Okay, so if you always have advantage, persistent advantage, then combat prowess is a little bit less useful, or isn't quite as useful for you, but it's still solid and strong, right? And I would still say it's better than irresistible offense. Like if you just turn once per combat a miss into a hit, that's probably more damage than you're going to get on average from irresistible offense. So if you just want to do more damage, combat prowess is probably the way to go. Boon of dimensional travel. Increase one ability score by of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. And then you have blink steps, which is whenever you take the attack or magic action, you can teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. And it has to be immediately after you take those actions. Okay. So this one's like an A for survival and an A for versatility. It's a good amount of mobility on the battlefield. It can really help you. It's not quite as good as getting into combat as just having a movement speed, because you'd have to, right? If you're the frontliner or tank and you're trying to get into melee, you have to take the action first, and the action has to resolve first. You have to finish your entire attack action before you can teleport with this. So this is a little less useful for you, but just being able to, once you're already in melee and you're making attacks, just like teleport around as needed is great. Great for all spellcasters as well, just to be able to teleport. And this takes no additional action economy. So this is not a bonus action to do it. It's just when you're taking the attack or magic action. And if you have the hasted action, right, and you take the attack action with the hasted action, that is another attack action. You can teleport again. And if you're a fighter who action surges, that is yet another action. So if you're a Eldritch Knight with haste and action surge, you could use this 3 times in one turn, just to be bopping all around the battlefield. It's like your own version of Steel Wind Strike, right? And plus, if you're a fighter taking the attack action, you get 8 attacks anyway. So this is way better than Steel Wind Strike. Amazing. Yeah, so this one's good for the teleporting, if you want to be teleporting. Boon of Energy Resistance. Okay, this one allows you to decrease any ability score by 1 to a maximum of 30. You gain 2 resistances in any of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. And whenever you finish a long rest, you can change your choices. So, well, let's finish it. So, energy redirection. When you take damage of one of the chosen types from this feat, you can take a reaction to direct the damage of the same type toward another creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself that isn't behind total cover. If you do so, the creature must succeed on a dexterity saving throw. It's a constitution-based save, or they take damage equal to 2d12 plus your constitution modifier of that damage type. All right, so energy redirection is very reminiscent of like the monk's redirect attack, only this is a lot weaker. And there's a good chance that if the creature is dealing one of those energy types, then it is, not always, but a good chance it's resistant to that energy type. So you would want to, you're going to get more mileage out of this particular thing if you use it in a situation where there's a boss with minions or something like that, and then you can redirect it to the minions who are far less likely to be resistant to that damage type. But if it's just you and a red dragon, well, they're immune to fire. So they breathe fire, you redirect this, and it means nothing because they're immune. So the energy redirection part, I give a D. That allows you to do a little bit more single target damage. And at level 20 or 19, 2d12 plus your con modifier is just not much. The majority of the time, I would not even risk using my reaction on this. You have a lot better uses for your reaction than doing like 14 or 15 damage. All right. An opportunity attack is better than this. A retaliate attack is better than this. A protection fighting style use of your reaction to defend a fellow frontliner is better than this. A silvery barbs is better than this. So I give that a D. It's a D. Not that it means it's bad. It does add single target range damage. It just adds very little. Remember, that's what it means when I rank feats, right? You're adding that feature as opposed to a blank, in the cell, which means you're adding nothing for that. So you are adding single target range damage. It's just very weak. Okay. But for survivability, I give this an A. At level 19 and 20, you are very likely to have resistances to multiple of these damage types. Okay. You either have absorb elements, which is going to give you acid, cold, fire, lightning, and thunder, or you have a ring of resistance, which no longer requires attunement. So, or you can have a couple of those, or your DM, depending on how many rings they let you get, you might have a bunch of those. So this lets you just pick the ones you don't already have resistance to, which is great. And if you gain a new item or get a new feature, you can, with a long rest, swap these ones out. So I give it an A, right? And especially at high levels, you are going to be taking these damage types a lot more often. Especially this gives you access to resistance to psychic, psychic and radiant and necrotic, which are the less common ones to get resistance to, right? There are species that can give you those. There are certain feats that are kind of deprecated that can give you those, like from the Planescape campaign setting. They're not legacy yet, but they are tied to 2014 content. So even if your DM allows them, they're tied to legacy content, so they're kind of clunky. Yeah, so those are just not common damage types to get resistance to, and this gives you those, and you're likely to be taking a bunch of these damage types. So I think this is an A. Not quite as good as some of the other defensive epic boons here, but those are like A pluses, and this one's like an A minus. You won't feel bad taking it, I don't think. I think it'll work well for you, and you'll enjoy it. Boon of Fate. Increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Improve Fate. When you or another creature within 60 feet of you succeeds on or fails a d20 test, you can roll 2d4 and apply the total rolled as a bonus or penalty to the d20 rolled. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you roll initiative or finish a short or long rest. I think this one's great. I give it an A in a lot of categories, and keep in mind that an A in multiple categories doesn't mean this thing is necessarily more powerful. What it means is it's an A, and you can use it in a bunch of different ways, okay? Maybe that means it's more powerful for you. Maybe it doesn't. It really depends on your build and how you play and a lot of different factors. So this one's an A. And now if you're like an attacker and you're looking and you mainly are looking for this to do like increase your ability to hit, which it can, I would say take combat prowess, not this, right? The ability to just once per turn just choose to hit instead is not nearly as good as a 2d4 on one of your attack rolls once per combat. Okay. But the real value of this one is helping with saving throws and not just yourself, but other allies, right? So it's got a strong support feature, so you can help with ability checks and saving throws, which are not common things to be able to boost for yourself or others. So this is great for that. And you don't have to choose between using it for yourself in like a scouting or social encounter and help, or helping yourself or helping allies or things like that. You don't have to like save it because, oh, maybe I want to save it for a saving throw during combat. You don't have to. You can use it then. And then when you roll initiative for combat, because you roll initiative every time you start combat, you get it back. So you've got it for combat as well. I think this is great. And if that's the kind of play style you're looking for, this is going to work well for you and be a lot of fun. It's going to be sweet. So if you're, especially if you're like a support type character, this is an excellent support feature. But it's going to be solid and helpful for anyone who's trying to play a scout or a face or just buff themselves or improve their own survivability or just having versatility. Like, it kind of helps you with all of those things. It's good. Next one up, Boon of Fortitude. You can increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Fortified Health. Your hit point maximum increases by 40, which is the same amount you would get at level 20 from the Tough Feat. So it's the same amount of hit points as the Tough Feat if you were at level 20. But, and I don't know why, it's like a random when they decide to like split up one paragraph of features into two separate features or put it all into one. I don't know why they didn't do that with this one. But reading on, in addition, whenever you regain hit points, you regain additional hit points equal to your Constitution modifier. Once you've regained these hit points, you can't do so again until the start of your next turn. So it's once per round, but without limit. Okay. And that part is actually quite strong. Okay, so it's going to buff, and not a lot, but it's going to buff like every healing word you receive, every cure wounds you're going to receive, things like that by a small amount, right? Especially at level 20, your healer in the party is probably not going to hit you with like cure wounds very often, or not at level 1 anyway. They're probably going to hit you with like a heal. So this is going to heal spell. So this is going to raise that from like a 70 points of healing to 73 or 75 or maybe 77 if you're a barbarian at level 20. Which is not a lot. You're talking at most, if you're that barbarian, 10% healing increase, which isn't a big deal. Where this is a big deal is when it's combined with any other feature that gives repetitive healing, like Aura of Vitality. So Aura of Vitality heals 2d6 once per round, and getting this on top of that is like increasing the healing you get from it by 40%. No, it's more like 60% increased healing to Aura Vitality, because every time it hits you every round, you would gain it again. Or imagine combining this with like the Regenerate spell. The Regenerate spell is not a very good spell. The only reason I recommended it for druids in the healer videos because druids don't have a better 7th, 8th, or 9th level healing spell. But if you combine this with Regenerate's now super good, right? Again, put this on that barbarian who's got 27, 24 Constitution with a +7 modifier, and now they regain 8 hit points per round, not 1. Okay, and 8 hit points per round is nothing to sneeze at, right? That's pretty good, especially when you're talking about healing between combats. And it's better than what the champion can do, because the champion only heals back up to when they're no longer bloodied. So the champion's gonna have about 50% healing every time their healing turns off, right? This has no max. It'll just bring you back to full. So Regenerate plus this, and you're now back to full in like 1 minute. I don't know, 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, depending on if you're the barbarian, you've got like 400 hit points. Okay, maybe it takes you like 5 or 6 minutes, but it's just always on. And 8 hit points in the middle of combat every single round without anybody doing anything is pretty good. And then you circle cast Regenerate, and now it lasts 25 hours. Oh my gosh, this is just crazy. Okay, so this one really gains value as you pair it with other things that are going to be healing you. This also pairs really well with the durable feat that allows you to spend a hit die as your bonus action, and you don't add anything to it. Well, now you're going to add your Constitution modifier to it. So now it's just as good as if you spent that hit die during a short rest, right? So it even boosts up durable. This is quite good. I give it a solid A for survivability, right? And if that's what you're looking for, you're going to enjoy this. It's going to work often. You're going to benefit from it often, like every single combat. If you're taking damage, this is great. Boon of Irresistible Offense. You can increase strength or dexterity by 1 to a maximum of 30. And I don't get when they decide to limit these epic boons to a certain number of skills or all of them, because there's really not a rhyme or reason to that. This one allows you to increase or overcome defenses. So the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you deal always ignores resistance. And overwhelming strike. When you roll a 20 on the d20 for an attack roll, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to the ability score increased by this feat. The extra damage type is the same as the attack's type. So that's when you not always when you crit, right? For most characters, when you roll the 20, that's a crit, right? But there's certain characters and the like the champion that gives you an increased crit range. So the champion's going to crit on an 18 to 20, but you still only get this when you roll a 20. And the Black Blade of Disaster spell allows you to it crits on an 18 to 20, but you only get this effect when it rolls a 20 or when you roll on a 20 on the attack roll with that Black Blade of Disaster. So it's not always when you crit, okay? But when you crit, you're talking about adding 20 to 24, 25 damage to the hit. And this is our first bummer, all right? we had a nice run of A's, and this was the first C. It sounds great, but the reality is most creatures do not have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. So that's not going to trigger very often. That's mainly swarms and a few other things, okay? So that's just not going to help you very much. Like you could go multiple long rests worth of combats, multiple days of adventuring, and not ever trigger this once. I mean, you might go weeks of in-game time and never trigger this. And the overwhelming strike, it's likely that's going to happen once or twice during a session. Depends on just the luck of the draw. Some people get 3 or 4 crits in a session. Some people get 0. And the more attacks you do, the more likely you are to get a 20. And if you have advantage, the more likely you are to get a 20. So if you're a barbarian or you have a persistent form of advantage from something else, right? Barbarians get that from reckless. You could be like I said, a fighter with a vex weapon, and with the level 10 feature, you're going to have advantage, hit or miss. You now have advantage against that creature, right? From studied attacks plus vex. So, and if you're the fighter with like elven accuracy, so you're going to roll 3 dice, you now have nearly a 15% chance on getting a 20 on one of those. Which, okay, I'm good at math, but as we all know, statistics is not math, it's voodoo. So help me understand, if there's any good statisticians out there, help me understand why 3 D20s, each one has its own chance to give you a 20. Why is that not a 15% chance? Why is it like 14.9 or 7 or whatever it is, okay? That makes no sense to me, which is probably why I did not very well in stats in my statistics class. I had to work extra hard at that one, and I think I scraped it by with a B or like a B minus. Whereas calculus, I just got an A without having to, I mean, I put in work, but it wasn't a struggle. Like statistics was a struggle. So, all right, you guys don't care about that. Okay, this one's a C. You're going to get more damage output over time from combat prowess, right? Just turning one miss into a hit per combat is going to be more, at level 20, is going to be more damage than you get out of this. However, if you just really enjoy the thrill of crits, this is going to feel great, right? It's going to feel awesome as you just increase your crit damage. Unfortunately, it's not additional dice of damage or some sort of multiplier, or this would be extra spicy for like rogues, right? Because when a rogue crits, they double all their sneak attack damage dice. They double the number of dice, not double the result. And this doesn't have any effect like that. It's just going to be a flat addition to the damage equal to the ability score you increased. So this is a C for all the damage dealing martial types. Not great. Boon of Recovery. You can increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Last Stand. When you would be reduced to 0 hit points, you can drop to a 1 instead and regain a number of hit points equal to half your hit point maximum. Now, this is how you do one of these features where if you drop to 0, you can drop to 1 instead and then regain some hit points. Like a lot of those are like, oh, you get 20 hit points or 30 hit points or 40 hit points. Blam, half your hit point maximum. If you're the barbarian tank with 450 hit points, you just regained 225. Yeah, I think I did that right. 225, right? And you can do it once per long rest. That's not going to come up every adventuring day, but if it does, if you have that many hit points, it's going to take a lot to take you down. But if it does, bam, you're back. Maybe you don't even need a healer. I don't know. But the other part is what really helps bring this one across the line and make this a solid A, which is recover vitality. You have a pool of 10 d10s, and as a bonus action, you can expend hit dice from the pool, roll those dice, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll's total. You regain all expended hit dice or all expended dice from that pool when you finish a long rest. So this is nice, and pairs has a great synergy with the Boon of Fortitude, right? Because not only would you roll those d10s, but you would also gain additional hit points equal to your Constitution modifier. So if you've got a 20 in Constitution, you're like the tank, right? You've got a 20 in Constitution, and you just use these one at a time, then that's a bonus action. It's going to give you 1d10 plus 5 hit points every time you use this. And this works great if you're the fighter and you're the tank, right? So you've got, or the zealot barbarian, right, who also have additional ways to bonus action do something to heal themselves. And this is going to add, or I guess that's really the Boon of Fortitude would add to those, which is, I probably should have mentioned there. But anyway, just got really excited about how these things synergize together. So this one's great and synergizes even better with the Boon of Fortitude, which you might be saying like, oh, you can only get one epic boon. Why would you ever talk about how they synergize together? Well, through the multi-classing rules and the rules of epic boons, you qualify for an epic boon just by being level 19. You don't have to be 19 levels in that class. So if you get 16 levels in one class and 4 levels in the other, but make sure that the last level of each, like one of them is at level 19 and the other one hits at character level 20, then each one of those you can take an epic boon instead of the regular feat you would have gotten. Also, every 30,000 experience points past level 20, you get another epic boon. I play that way, and I play level 21 shots, and you can keep bringing your character back, and they can just gain more experience and get more epic boons. So I don't know. There's rules in the game for having more than one epic boon, and I do this all the time. I don't know. I don't know if everybody does. I think a lot of DMs don't. And if you just want to try this out, come play with me, I guess. Combine epic boons. It's a lot of fun. This one's great. Solid A. Solid A for recovery or for survivability. Boon of skill. So you get to increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. You gain proficiency in all skills, which at this level is going to give you a +6, right? Your proficiency bonus is 6. So you get a +6 on every skill now. And you get to choose one skill that you lack expertise, and now you have expertise. So this one's simple, it's straightforward, it's great. I'm giving it an A for versatility, an A for the face roll, and an A for the scout roll. And it gives you a little bit of functionality in the support roll because you can't give somebody the help action on an ability check unless you are, and on a skill ability check unless you are proficient in that skill. So you must be proficient. So this gives an aspect of support as well, which always applies with skill proficiencies. The reason why it's a little bit more significant here is because normally, if you choose a skill, it's because you would be good at it, right? Your ability score that skill is based on has like a positive modifier, or it's one of your best, right? So you choose skills that line up with your ability scores, right? Most of the time, backgrounds sometimes prevent that depending on how you do backgrounds. The thing here is that you're just going to be proficient with everything, which means you are definitely going to get skill proficiencies in the skills that are your dump stats. And so you're not going to be particularly good at those. And in those cases, it might be better for you to, instead of making your own roll for that check, help somebody else who is really good at those, and then you're giving them advantage. The reason I'm still only giving this a D, meaning it only gives a little bit of healer functionality, support functionality, is because by level 20, anybody who's like specializing in a role is probably already has a way to gain advantage on that, right? Or they're a rogue and they have reliable talent, right? So they just can't roll less than 10 on the D20. So it's just not very often that they're going to need that advantage. And if they do really need that advantage, and you have the ability to plan ahead. Anybody who has the spell Enhance Ability gives them advantage persistently on that skill or not that skill, any ability check for that one ability score with all skills related to that ability score. For 1 hour, right? So there's just so many ways to gain advantage that it's not going to be at level 20. It's not going to be very often that you giving somebody advantage is going to make a difference because they already have it. Especially with a rule that gives, if you have you're making a ability check that applies to both a skill proficiency and a tool proficiency, and if you're proficient in both, rules is written right in the player's handbook, and ever since Xanathar's Guide to Everything since 2017, if you have both of those proficiencies, you roll with advantage already. So there's just so many scenarios where you're already going to have advantage. Okay, but this does add something for support, so I'm going to give it a D. It adds a little bit of something, which is nice. If you're a marshal and you're based around like attacking it all, you probably still want combat prowess, right? Like this, but this is if you want to diversify, like you're always hitting anyway, and I don't know, right? and you just want to be more of a skill person, this is great. Take it. You're going to feel good about it. The one thing that's going to be a feel bad moment is if you're the kind of player or you've built the kind of character that you want to be more of a skill monkey, you like having skill proficiencies and all that kind of stuff, you probably took the skilled feat or skill expert along the way, or one of those like observant or keen mind that gives you a skill proficiency or expertise or something like that. You've taken skill feats along the way, and now you just have proficiency with everything. That's going to be a bit of a feel bad moment, and I would ask your DM if they will allow you to swap out those feats that you got previously. I would. I allow players to swap one feat at every time they level up, and again when they get an epic boon after level 20, with the 30,000 experience points past level 20. So I allow people to swap those out anyway, just kind of prevent those feel bad moments. And those feel bad moments are persistent feel bad moments. It doesn't just feel bad once; it feels bad every time you play with that character because they're stuck with that thing that's redundant. So yeah, I allow swapping of one feat with every level you gain. Yeah, that's homebrew, but it prevents a lot of feel bad moments, people. So I recommend that. Okay, this one's great. Boon of Speed. Increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Escape Artist. As a bonus action, you can take the disengage action, which also ends the grappled condition on you, and then quickness, your speed increases by 30 feet. This one was better. It got devalued a little bit by the Vampire Plaything origin feat, which is an origin feat that you can take that lets you take the bonus action or the disengage action. Sorry, lets you take dash or disengage as a bonus action. This used to be the only way to just through a feat gain the ability to take disengage as a bonus action. Otherwise, you'd have to do like there's a few species that do that. There's the rogue that gives you cunning action that will give you dash and disengage and hide as a bonus action. So there just wasn't a lot of ways to do that. Now there's an origin feat that does that, and that made this one a bit less special. That being said, maybe you don't have that background, you couldn't get that background, you don't want that background, but you're playing at level 20. This is still a good way to get it. The ability to just end grapple conditions whenever you take the disengage action is great. Yeah, and then a 30-foot increase to your speed is great too. The problem with all of these is that there's just other ways to do this that are less expensive than spending your one epic boon on it. Okay, you're level 20, you probably have other ways to increase your speed. And if you're a character who cares about taking disengage as a bonus action, you've definitely figured that out before this. The one scenario where I think this makes a lot of sense and would be an A ranked feat would be you're playing at 20, right? You're just creating a character for a level 20 one shot, and you didn't play through a campaign where you wanted to be a skirmisher, and so you had to figure that out at like level 3, right? At level 3, you figured out how to be a good skirmisher with your character. So this one is you're just starting at 20. You didn't figure it out before here, and you want to play this character as a skirmisher. You could just pick Paladin, do this, and now you're a skirmisher, right? Or you could also just pick Paladin and have a reach weapon, and now you're a skirmisher most of the time. Anyway, so I give this one a B. It's still solid. It's still useful. The extra movement speed is going to feel good. But this does not stack up to any of the other A-ranked epic boons, and you get very few epic boons. So you probably want to pick one of those A-ranked ones first. But if you're looking to be just really, really, the super mobile person on the battlefield, this helps with that. This is going to give you a lot of movement speed. It's solid. And our next real bummer, Boon of Spell Recall. This one allows you to increase only your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1 to a maximum of 30. And then free casting, which is a misnomer. Whenever you cast a spell with a level of 1 to 4 spell slot, roll a d4. If the number rolled equals the number of the spell slot, the slot isn't expended. This sounds cool, except that you're level 20 or 19, right? You're casting level 9 spells, right? And most of the spells you're going to cast are level 5 through 9, right? You have 3 5th level spell slots, and you're going to burn through those. Those are your throwaway spell slots, right? You're going to keep the 6, be reserved with the 6, 7, 8, 9 level spell slots, so you have less of those. And the level 5 spell slots are the ones you're just throwing away, right? In trash combats, because you have 3 of those. And that's not even going to qualify for this. So first of all, most of the time when you're casting spells, this isn't even going to trigger. And if you're casting a level 1 to 4 spell, you're casting like Absorb Elements or Silvery Barbs or Shield, then yeah, okay, you'll roll this and maybe you don't spend that spell slot 25% of the time. And frankly, you're probably not going to care because you're going to have 4 first level spell slots, 3 second level spell slots, 3 third level spell slots, 3 fourth level spell slots. Like it's going to be very rare that you're just going to burn through all of those. It would have to be one of those situations where you're doing a mega dungeon crawl that lasts multiple sessions and you're having a hard time taking a long rest in there. So you're just going to have like an inordinate number of combats in one long rest, right? You're going to have like 8 or 10 combats per long rest in that kind of a scenario. And then this is going to help more. But even then, it's still too random to be something you rely on. The only way this is going to make sense is like if you're a half caster, or a third caster, right? You only have half casters have 5th level spell slots, third casters have 4th level spell slots maximum, or you're like anyway, multi-class, right? If your max spell slot is 4 or 5, then this is going to feel better. Yeah, you're going to use it more often. If you're a full caster, don't take this. And that's where this is the real tragedy, because there aren't like this is of all of the epic boons, this is the only one that's like this is by name screams spellcasting to you, right? And if you're a full caster, you should not take this because you're not going to use that many spell slots that this is going to matter. Just take one of the other epic boons, probably one of the survival ones or the mobility ones or something like that. That's going to help and going to trigger a lot more often, and you're going to get a lot more out of it, which means it's going to feel good. And when things feel good, they're fun, right? So you're not going to have fun with this if you're a full caster, which is unfortunate. So I can average it out and say, like, for full casters, this is a D. You're adding a D level functionality. If you're a half caster, this might be a B. If you're a 1/3 caster, this is adding like maybe an A level to you. The problem with those is the 1/3 casters are marshals. So how much are you going to care that you're using fewer spell slots when your primary function is attacking with your weapons anyway, right? You shouldn't be casting that many spells. I don't know. Maybe that's a B plus. I don't know. Its averages at a C across the board. Not great. I would skip it. Boon of the Night Spirit. You can increase one of your ability scores of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Merge with shadows. While within dim light or darkness, you can give yourself the invisible condition as a bonus action. The condition ends on you immediately after you take an action, a bonus action, or a reaction. So you literally can't do anything except move, or it ends. Which means you probably want to do this at the end of your turn so that you have the invisible condition between your turns. And shadowy form. While within dim light or darkness, you have resistance to all damage except psychic or radiant, which is great. That's most of the important damage types. That's going to apply most of the time. Sure, you'll run into a creature now and then that's going to do a lot of psychic or a lot of radiant damage, but it's going to be very rare that that's the majority of their damage for that creature. So like in most of circumstances, you're going to be resistant to the damage, which is great when this triggers, and it triggers when you're in dim light or darkness. So it is hard. There is only like one way to create dim light, and even that's kind of a little bit up to the DM's interpretation, and that's the Twilight Cleric's Twilight Sanctuary, which creates dim light. But it's kind of ambiguous whether it only upgrades darkness to dim light, and does it actually downgrade bright light to dim light. That second part is a bit ambiguous. So barring that, unless you just happen to be in dim light, which you can't rely on, then you've got to create darkness. And at level 20, it's very likely that creatures have dark vision, which pierces all forms of darkness unless the feature says otherwise. So like the darkness spell specifically says it blocks dark vision, which means unless it's the darkness spell, dark vision pierces the magical darkness. There is a sage advice clearly spelling that out. Like they spell it out specifically for that situation. So no, the summon Fae Trixie Fae that allows them to create a little 5-foot globe of darkness, that does not block dark vision like the dark vision spell does. Bummer, because I loved that idea until I saw that sage advice come out. All right. But you can create darkness of any kind. There's a lot of ways to create it. There's the darkness spell. There's multiple other ways to create it. And this doesn't require magical darkness or the darkness spell. It just says any form of darkness. Okay, so what am I getting around to? It is far more likely. So you can create your own darkness and then you benefit from this. Both the invisible condition, which is so-so, because a lot of creatures can have blind sight or true sight and can just see you. More importantly is the darkness so that you have that resistance to everything or almost every damage type. And you can create darkness to do that. But again, at this level, creatures are very likely to be able to see their darkness, and your allies may or may not be able to see through that, right? The most people that darkness is going to hinder is your allies. So don't take this unless you coordinate with your allies and specifically discuss it, make sure that they know that you're going to be trying to create darkness, and they should all prepare with blind sight or something like that, which, probably 50% of characters or 25% are already going to have blind sight at this level anyway. It's the rest that are really going to need it, especially things like the healer, right? Healer and support characters are less likely to take a feature to give them blind sight than say the marshals. The marshals are probably already thinking like, well, the blind fighting style, they're already probably switched to that by this level. If they're a fighter who can, fighters can switch their fighting style. or they took another feature that gives them this, or warlocks have devil sight that's going to help solve this problem. So just make sure you discuss it with the party and let them know that you want to take this, and if they can all accommodate it, then you will take it. But if all of them can't accommodate it, you should probably not take this, or you're going to like cause feel bads to your the other players in your party, which is the wrong way to play. Right? Do not. And at this point, it would be intentional. They've already told you they can't accommodate it, and you're going to do it anyway. Now you're just being toxic. Okay, so don't do that. This is a game. It's about fun. Intentionally ruining somebody else's fun is a jerk move. Don't be a jerk. Okay. So this is, I give it a C for that. If you can, work it out with your party and everybody can accommodate it, then I would say this maybe is like an A. It's pretty good. Yeah, I give it an A if the whole party can build around it. And last but not least, the Boon of Truesight. You can increase any ability score by 1 to a maximum of 30, and you have Truesight with a range of 60 feet. Simple, straightforward, and useful. But notice I still give it a C, and that's because there's a 6th level spell, Truesight, that a lot of classes have, a lot of full casters have, and they can just cast it, and they have Truesight without concentration for 1 hour, which is a better way to do that than spend your 1 epic boon feat on this. Yeah. Plus, if you have Blind Sight, that gets you most of what you need anyway, and Blind Sight is in one way better than Truesight, which is Blind Sight allows you to pierce heavy obscurement like cloud spells or cloud effects. So Blind Sight works through cloud effects, Truesight does not. Truesight allows you to see the true form of shape changers and allows you to pierce like illusion spells. And that's where Truesight's better than Blind Sight. Blind Sight doesn't do those things. But those are rare circumstances. Monsters do not cast illusions very often. And somebody being shape changed, yeah, of course, the hags, right? That's the most common way that comes up. There's like hags and things like that. Those are plot devices, and you being able to see through that would just, obviate that plot point, which is okay. It's just those are rare things. And so Blind Sight most of the time is better than Truesight. Because cloud effects are going to happen way more often than illusions and shape changers. When it matters, right? Like when you're attacked by werewolves, of course you already know they're werewolves. You don't need to see through it. They're werewolves or werebears or wereboars, right? So it doesn't matter. And the rest of the time, you're a full caster. You can get Truesight. There's other ways to get Truesight. There's like the Warlock has a way to get Truesight. So this is a C just because there's other ways to do this, and therefore you do not want to spend your 1 epic boon on this if you have other ways to do it, and it's going to matter for you. So yeah, I give it a C in most circumstances. Now you could be one of those characters in a party where one of the players wants to use the boon of the night spirit, and there's other things you can benefit from with dim light and darkness. So if you build your whole party around dim light and darkness, or the darkness specifically, and you have no other way to be able to see through the darkness, then maybe you do want to take Truesight, and that's the only way you can accommodate that for the party. You're the healer, and I don't know. I mean, the healer's going to get Truesight. I don't know. Do druids get it? I don't know. There, yes, this might be the way you deal with darkness, and for you, that in that scenario, this might be an A. But in the general common scenario, this is a C. I don't recommend taking it unless your party is specifically building around darkness and optimizing around darkness. Okay, and that's the last of them. So thanks for watching. Remember to be cool when you play D&D, and I'll catch you next time.